Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Rico,
I'm Tony.
and this is Relatively Sound, the channel that judges a book by its cover. At least we are today, because Tony and we're going to be talking about some of our favorite album covers. Now, a lot of the ones I'm picking today kind of do stay in the genre of rock. I know, Tony, you might kind of venture out to some other genres, which is good. But album covers, they're kind of an interesting topic to me because like I mentioned, judging a book by its cover, it's something you're not supposed to do, right? You're always told by like a teacher or parent, don't judge something by the way it looks. But there's a lot of different forms of media where we kind of do that, right? Whether it's an actual book, album cover, a movie poster. And I feel like taking just those three into consideration, I almost feel like album covers are the most important. Like when I think of a book cover, sometimes like there's iconic ones, right? But then book covers, there's so many different editions. Like Stephen King, one of my favorite authors, you go find one of his books at the library. If you go to five different libraries, there'll be sometimes five different covers, right? Album artwork, even though they're all alternative album covers, there's usually like one that just is known to that specific album. And same thing kind of with movie posters or DVD covers. Like movie posters are kind of cool, but then a lot of times the DVD covers are a little lame. And then you have like the trailers, which you would say are maybe more important. So album covers to me are very important because a lot of the time when an album is announced, that's the first thing you see about the album, right? That and sometimes like a single. And I know the single's more important because it's the actual music, but the cover just it can make you like, oh, I really want to listen to this album, or oh, I want to stay away from this album. This cover is like, so I mean, Tony, for you, how important is an album cover?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not really that important to me, but it's something that can really enrich an experience. I think when it is most important is probably when it's a band you've never really heard of before. It gets you to click on the album. Um, and so, there's definitely times where there'll be an album, maybe I like the album cover, but I don't really like the album. So, then like, at least it's got that going for it. But I mean, I think for me, like when an album cover can kind of capture the theme or the vibe of an album is really when it does kind of transcend just music. It turns more into a little bit more of like an experience, if you will. But I am someone that doesn't really know much about art or photography or really how that stuff works. So it's cool for me to appreciate that element while it's still within, the scope of music. So I do like it, like artwork for that reason.
Well, and actually, going off what you just said about sometimes the art transcending the music. I mean, when I think of album covers, the first one that always comes to mind is Abbey Road by the Beatles. I mean, that to me is iconic because, like, when I think of that album, sometimes I'll think of the cover before I think of the fantastic songs that are on the actual album. It's the cover that I see most on like t-shirts when I go to like Walmart. In fact, I own one of those t-shirts. People go to that actual road and recreate the album cover, which I'm sure is very annoying for people trying to drive around that road. So like that to me is an album cover where it's like the album obviously is amazing in its own right, but the cover is like its own thing.
As you're talking about people going to the road to take recreate the photos and stuff, it makes me think about Figure Eight, much smaller scale than the Beatles, but before they removed the mural of like I don't know the streaks and stuff, like people would take photos with that, and it's a cool way to kind of like, especially when you're not as big as the Beatles, like to kind of like interact with your artists in a way, right? And kind of just like once again, it just changes the experience and makes you feel closer to the artist if you can kind of connect with it. I kind of like when like you see an album cover and you can just imagine the band like walked by something or went to a spot and they were just like, "Yo, that'd make a sick album cover. Let's take a photo of it or let's use this picture. That would be awesome." Um, so kind of like the one that you had brought up before recording this, Viva La Vida, one of your favorites. Like it's just like a photo of, you can explain. I don't want to have to pronounce these names.
It's a painting done by, I'm going to butcher this name, Eugene Delacroix. Delacroix. It's French. And it's a painting called Liberty Leading the People. And I don't know exactly. I didn't really find online like why the band chose this particular painting, but the whole album artwork was like the band and Tappan Gafton kind of came up with the concept for the album. And the album does have a lot of themes of like life and war and love. And you hear a song like the title track or one of the title tracks, Viva La Vida, and it does have this like kind of it's poppy. It has like modern production, but it has like a classical sound to it, doesn't it? Like the strings
Well,
and the dun 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 dun, but it's done like in like a modern way. So it's
like
like that historical photo put into modern music.
to me, I think less of the title track. I think more of a song like Violet Hill, or what's like the Cemeteries one?
Cemeteries of London.
Yeah, where it feels more like not really like marching, but I can like because like in the photo, like it's like they're like reaching out kind of heroically, and you can just imagine like a rainy day, everyone's like marching out to I don't know battle or something real dramatic. But it has kind of that kind of cinematic in a way. You know,
Uh,
and then kind of another historic photo, one that I think is an awesome album cover is Rage Against the Machine's self-titled record. So Malcolm Brown took the photo of
yeah, you get
this
to pronounce
monk.
this now.
I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna put some respect on that guy's name. Of a monk who set himself on fire in form of protest, and the band used it for their record. And even though I think in most cases I would be like, you probably shouldn't make that an album cover just because like it was some like serious, heavy stuff. But I think with Rage, they felt so strongly about what they were singing about, rapping about, why they were playing music, and I think they have some credentials. I know Tom Morello's got a degree in political science or something, so they get a pass on that. But I think it ended up being a really cool record. And then also too, I think for the anniversary, they did the thing where they like zoomed out of the photo and you can see like more of the surroundings, which I like when a band. Well, sometimes I like when a band does an anniversary thing and they adjust it, the original photo. But I also what's like an iconic album cover. I think the Blue Album from Weezer. And I mean, there's nothing really special about it. It's just the band standing awkwardly in a row behind a blue background. You know, the name of the band at the top right. But I kind of like how the Brown album, Primus, the Black album, Metallica, the White album, the Beatles. They all are just like the most like nothing titles, and they're also all nothing album covers. And I don't know, it's kind of like an anti-album cover. It's just like, you know what, focus on the music, or maybe in Weezer's case, it's just kind of like, yeah, we're just four dudes. Once again, it's like album cover is just one more chance to be creative and stuff, and if you want to make a statement, you can. And then maybe sometimes not making a statement is your statement.
And
So
at least to be fair to Weezer, like they made that a theme. Like where like Metallica and the
true.
Beatles, like those are just like the White Album, the Black Album. Weezer, because first of all, the album like the Beatles album is actually called the White Album, right? Like it's called the White. It's not like self-titled. Weezer is self, and same thing when like Weezer is called just Weezer. But they have like five other albums that are called Weezer, but they're known by the fans as the Green Album, the Red Album, the Black Album, and
Oh,
I think
yeah, I
that's
guess are they all called Weezer?
yeah.
I didn't realize they were all called Weezer. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So like they have like I don't know at this point 5 or 6 different self-titled albums, but they're not known as self-titled. They're known as the Blue Album, the White Album, the Red Album. And I do find that interesting.
They
Like,
they have a compilation called Blue, Green, Red, which is kind
there
of
you
cool,
go.
and it has albums from those songs from those three albums. Oh, well, that just enhances it even more for me. That's
And I
dope.
believe I read somewhere that there is a different version of the Blue Album from like another country's release of the record. That is the uncropped photo where you can actually see their feet.
Oh, wow, free putting out free feet pics like that.
Yeah. But
So okay, so you
there,
mentioned
yeah.
consistency. Like all their albums are like that. And I do think consistency goes a long way. I mean, maybe it's more in the case of like branding, right? You kind of associate it with an artist. So one of the ones I just wanted to real quickly plug in was I like the Carter from Lil Wayne, and I know he has a couple where it's like him as a child with all like the face tattoos and stuff. I think that's iconic. I don't really know those records all the way through, but it doesn't matter because it gets stuck in my head, just like the vision of it. But you had actually brought up some good examples of a band like Journey, where their album covers are all from the same person and they're all sort of space, kind of real 70s looking art. I don't even know how you would describe it.
Yeah, like some of them have like what you like is like, is it a spaceship? It looks like a beetle. Is it an insect?
Is
Like
that a
the great,
pinball with wings? Like, what am I looking at?
yeah, like Escape, even the greatest hits, Frontiers. Like they have like these kind of, they're kind of like vintage, but they're also kind of futuristic. It's weird, but they're a lot, those kind of iconic albums from Journey were all done by Stanley Mouse and Alton Kelly. So it was like these two guys who were like responsible for the more popular Journey album covers. And I found that interesting because, like you said, there is like consistency in the album covers, and you hope too in the music. Like, you don't want every album to sound the same, obviously, but like there is cohesion in each album. And sometimes that can come from the artwork. Same thing for me goes with Radiohead. Every Radiohead album, and I think including every side project that like Tom York has done, all the artwork was done by Stanley Donwood. And I feel like some of them I would not have known it was the same artist. Like some, yeah, like A Moonshaped Pool and In Rainbows kind of have similar artwork styles. One being really colorful and one being like black and white. But like something kind of like The Bends, which is like almost a little disturbing. I know you
One
hate
of
that
my
album
least
cover.
favorite. I
Yeah.
don't really like Radiohead's album covers. I mean, I like Amnesiac and Kid A's kind of cool too.
Yeah, and those are
Um,
like brother and sister albums, so I kind of like that they have their own identity in the artwork.
are they actually?
Yeah.
I don't
They're
know the
like,
Radiohead lore like that.
oh, well, maybe we'll get into more Radiohead later on this podcast. I know you're like going hell no, but
I like some things about Radiohead for sure. But yeah, like with Journeys, for example, like I could see one of those album covers and just be like, oh, it's a Journey record. I don't know which one, but that's definitely Journey. I don't know if I could say the same with Radiohead necessarily, but
I
that is
kind
not
of
to
like that.
discredit it though. Yeah, I mean they're all the same artists, but they're all very. I mean, I would say they're pretty different.
Something that you brought up that I think was interesting was albums where the artist or whoever was in charge of coming up with the artwork for that album took direct inspiration from a previous album, to the point where sometimes the album cover is mocked up the exact same way, but with, obviously the different artist being the, forefront of the album cover. Your example was the Clash's London Calling.
Yes, yes. So London Calling, which I think is an awesome album cover. It's just an action shot, smashed in a guitar. The pink and green combo looks awesome. We need to see more of that come back. But it parodies the I don't even know which Elvis album it is, but Elvis playing a guitar, and I gotta say the Clash looks a lot cooler than Elvis there. Sorry guys. The King of Rock and Roll, I believe, is the name of it. But yeah, and I mean, there's really nothing more to say than that, other than they have the save formatting for the name being on the corners like that, black and white photo, rocking out. And then kind of the other one that comes to mind too, which is a little bit more of a stretch genre-wise, is Scott Weiland's first solo record, 12 Bar Blues. It's got the same like blue lighting with kind of like a light green text from John Coltrane's. I wrote down what it was. Blue Train from John Coltrane. And yeah, that album could not be any further away from 12 Bar Blues as possible. Hell, the name 12 Bar Blues doesn't even fit the record. So it's sort of a weird meshing of, I don't know, just a bunch of different kind of inspirations, which is interesting, where the Clash just took it a little more just at face value of just like, that probably looks cool. We should do that and make it better.
And it's funny because going back to London Calling, I actually read that the person who took that photograph, whose name is, I jotted it down somewhere tonight, Penny Smith, she didn't want that photograph to be used because she thought it was too out
Oh,
of focus and was taken away from what the band wanted to do with that album cover. But Joe Strummer and Ray Laurie, who was the graphic designer, was like, no, I think this is like a perfect shot.
It really is. It really is. Um,
And kind of one that I think is funny on the same topic of, taking direct inspiration is kind of David Bowie plagiarizing himself.
yeah, you had mentioned this one, which was
Yeah,
new to me.
Tony and I and our friend Chris, we did a whole episode on David Bowie's album Heroes. And I don't know how I found out about this because I know little to nothing about David Bowie up until the last couple of years, but he had an album called The Next Day, released in 2013, came out much later after Heroes did. And it's literally the album cover of Heroes, but there's a white box in the middle with the text called The Next Day, which is the name of the album. And it's just funny because I know some people again would say like, oh, that's kind of lazy, but and I have not having heard that other Bowie album, I'm sure there's significance to why he did that, but I think it's just intriguing, and it probably makes some listeners like, oh, is this supposed to be like a sequel to that album? Like, is there some special relationship between the two albums? Like, what is he trying to say? And he might not be trying to say anything. I might have just been like, yeah, I thought this was
He
kind
might
of
have just been
funny.
trolling.
Yeah.
I remember the first Queens of the Stone Age record. Well, like I like bought the CD of it like many
Self-titled.
years ago. Yes, yes, and it can't like and it has like the lady with her fingers in her underwear, and she's like wearing like a robe and like a big chain, not a chain, like a pearl necklace. And when I got the CD, it like came in this sleeve, and it was like a big red stripe, so you couldn't see through it or anything. And it said like explicit or censored or something like that. And then you pulled off the sleeve, and then you saw the normal album cover, which was kind of interesting because it's like I wonder if they actually had like a censored label on them for something, and then they like just took it in stride. Or another example that's kind of a little different but same type of vibe is Primus. Their greatest hits, They Can't All Be Zingers. Also, Primus album cover right there for you.
That's gotta be one of my least favorite album covers of all time.
Hey, it fits the music and it makes you go, "What the hell is that? And why do I need to hear more of it?" But yeah, They Can't All Be Zingers. It's like the album cover itself is just a slab of like the most processed sliced cheese you could ever imagine. But then there's just like an actual sleeve over it that has like a little like block of cheese with the head sticking out of it, very similar to like that style. So it's kind of interesting, but you can kind of go beyond just the album cover, and you can once again put it in a physical media.
I also like too, because talking about Primus album covers, a lot of theirs are like funny, but sometimes in like a like almost gross way. Like the frizzle
Yeah.
fry one on your shirt. Like no one's gonna see it and go like this is beautiful, but people will like it like you because it's funny or because you think it fits the album. And I always like it when a band can kind of be a little like kind of jokey with themselves, like not making fun of themselves, but they're like,
Not take themselves too seriously.
yeah, like for example, like Radiohead's music, like they're a very serious band to me, and their album covers kind of suggest that. Maybe the first two being the least serious, the Bends and Pablo Honey, where like Pablo Honey is like a picture of like a baby, I think. But one of my favorite album covers when it just comes to like humor is the Raconteurs debut album, Broken Boy Soldiers, which is like a photograph of them, the whole band, in like an elevator, I believe, and they're all beat up. Like they have cuts on their lips, they have like black eyes and bruises, and I really feel like it doesn't have anything to do with like the album title, which is based. It's a title track from one of the songs on the album. But it's just kind of like funny, and it just like I remember the first time I saw it, kind of getting into Jack White and all his bands that he's in. I was just kind of like, wow, this one's interesting. Like, I don't know who anyone on this cover is except Jack White at that time, but I'm like, it intrigued me and made me kind of laugh a little bit. I did learn that it was photographed by someone named Autumn Day Wild, but like the rest of the artwork was designed with the help of Patrick Keeler, who is the band's drummer. So
Oh,
it's kind of cool to like to kind of do like an in-house thing. Like I don't know, is it an attempt to like save money, or is it an attempt to go, I have this idea of what the album sounds like. I already know what the album's supposed to be. So I want to create the album artwork to go with it. And that kind of makes sense. Like, you're creating the art. So it's like, like you're not creating the art. You're creating the actual music, right? Which is, I guess, the art itself. But
Different forms of art.
yeah, like,
I wanted to bring up one quick thing about Broken Boy soldiers because you had mentioned it.
yeah.
You're like, why do they have bruises and stuff like that? Why are they all like bloody and stuff? Maybe it's from the Steady as She Goes music video. That's always what I used to think. Like it'd be like a cool little story, like
Oh,
because everyone's wiping out, they're crashing on their race. And
yeah. I didn't really connect the two, but yeah, that's kind of
I think that's a fun little kind of narrative
yeah.
in my head, which once again is like if they didn't have that album cover or the music video, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, I would still enjoy the song. Don't get me wrong.
Which, hey, we did just a couple weeks ago do a music video episode. So if you want to hear some of our thoughts of some of our favorite music videos, I will maybe to probably not have it linked in the comments below.
There we go.
I was going to bring this up, but I might as well bring it up now since we're on the subject. You've released your own album, Tony, and you
Yeah.
have album artwork for it. Like, how did that come to be?
Well, yeah, way to put me on the spot there. But yeah, it actually ended up being that Bryce and I we were talking about ideas and stuff, and we were thinking like, so we had talked about how we like when album covers capture either the message, the meaning, or the vibe of the album. And so, like an example we talked about, him and I was Dirt from Alice in Chains. Like it's like a lady being submerged under dirt, and there's a lot of heavy themes on the album, and we don't need to break that down. But listen to the record and look at the album cover; it just works. And so for us, we took it more, I guess, more thought out in the way that we wanted to document how we made the album, which was sending things back and forth, not being there in person. So we had where it was like two of like those like tin can, like radio things you do with the
Yeah,
string in
with
between like a fence.
Patrick flossing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fortunately, he was unavailable to do the photo shoot with us, but Patrick said he'll be there for the next one. So that was kind of our idea with it, and it turned out pretty cool. So
Um, well, and I just wanted really quick, since you kind of brought up how Dirt and your own album cover were meant to kind of maybe visualize some of the themes or the feelings of said albums. One that I wouldn't have thought until recently did the same for me is Spoon's album Hot Thoughts. Now, we decided we're not going to have you do any more Spoon related episodes, Tony, but
not in the near
I
future, at least.
I recently recorded me doing ranking all of Spoon's albums from my least favorite to favorite, which might actually already be out by the time this episode comes out. So I will also maybe have that linked down below. But Hot Thoughts is very interesting for a couple of reasons. One, when you look at the cover, it looks like an X-ray of like the side of someone's like head. And I actually learned it was a watercolor drawing done by Christine Merlin. And it's interesting because it's very colorful and it's very bright. And when I listen to Hot Thoughts, which is one album that you have listened to, Tony, it's probably out of the three that you've heard, was your favorite Spoon album.
Maybe, yeah.
It is very dancey, very very vibrant. Like there's a lot of synths, there's a lot of like when I listen to that album, it sounds bright. It's like maybe it's because it's like their poppiest album, but like there's I don't know, like I just feel like there's different colors in the album. Like there's a song called Pink Up, which I don't know, like there is some pink on the album cover, so maybe that draws me to it. But it just like it's kind of like a nighttime album, and sometimes the nighttime albums, for me, it's like a darker kind of album, or kind of like you vibe out to it, or it's like a dancey album. It's like a party, it's like a rave. And Hot Thoughts to me is like their closest album to that kind of dance club sound. So
I mean, I do think it does fit the vibe of like the title track and stuff really well.
or Can I Sit Next to You, First Caress. But something I learned was that because Britt did a whole interview about the album cover, Christine Marlene, who did this artwork, Britt saw it and was like, while the band was finished, like they weren't even done creating the album, but Britt was making like a portfolio of pictures and themes that he thought fit visually what the album sounded like to him up to that point. And he commissioned Christine to come up with artwork for each song on the album, which you can see if you buy like the CD or vinyl version of the album. And some of those were like the single artwork for some of the singles from Hot Thoughts. And it was all designed and done before the album was even finished. So that's kind of a cool example of like, I'm going to actually kind of let maybe the artwork itself dictate how the album's going to end up sounding like.
That is interesting. Could you imagine Rage Against the Machine? They saw the picture of the Monk on Fire. They're like, "Yo, let's make a banger album to that."
Well, I mean, was that their debut album?
It was.
Maybe that's what sparked it. They're like, we
like need to form a band.
We like talking about politics. This is like the most like engaging, stunning visual when it comes to that type of stuff.
Yeah, let's make the audio equivalent of it, right?
Yeah.
So there is one more album cover that I need to bring up, before it's too late here. One Hot Minute from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. That is an all-time favorite album cover of mine. Top 5. It's just for an album that is like released during a band's probably like roughest period, like post-success, your guitarist leaves, you're struggling from addiction. The songs are heavy, that 90s like Jane's Addiction type vibe. Kind of psychedelic in moments, kind of funky. Distorted guitars, there's a baby crying on the record, like kind of all those things. And then you have the album cover be mostly black and like red and just real dark and kind of chalky, but it's got like little cartoon drawings and stuff. Same with on the inside, like another artwork. It's the coolest contrast to me. And it really does take the album up to the next level personally. Maybe that's just nostalgia creeping in. Maybe I'm just biased on it, but for me, it's cemented itself into my life with the album covers.
And speaking of like a visual album cover that's done with, like the Hot Thoughts one, it was watercolor, whether it's like graphic design, whether it's like charcoals or paint or sketchings, my favorite when it comes to that kind of style of artwork is probably Day and Age, the Killers album. Paul Normansell, hopefully I said that right. He's responsible for that album artwork. It's another album artwork that I think is just beautiful. Like, it's one that I would absolutely frame and put on the wall. It's also very like maybe not thematic of the album, but it's very fitting. Like, it looks like it's like a desert scene in Nevada, which is where the band is from. It's very fitting for the album itself because, like, again, it's another colorful album. I really like the design style of just like a ton of little like dots that make up the actual artwork.
It makes me think of those like we had one growing up, like those like in bathrooms and showers where you have like the glass that you can't quite see through. It's blurred by a bunch of like kind of like circles and stuff. It makes me think about that.
Yeah, and it's he also did the single artworks, which the single artworks is that same style of art where he does a portrait of each band member. So like, I think the Human one was the portrait of Dave. I think A Dustline Fairy Tale was maybe Mark. Spaceman was Brandon, and I think The World We Live In was Ronnie. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a kind of a way to have the band in the album artwork, but not just a photograph of them. It's this cool design style. And they took that same design and used it for their live album that came out for this tour of Day and Age, live at Royal Albert Hall, where they take the venue itself and kind of throw it into that world of Day and Age, which I always thought was cool. And that one,
I like that one more than the Day and Age cover, actually.
And that one, I actually, behind you, Tony, in that closet, which used to be my bedroom, there is a blown up version that a friend of me got that was displayed at a record store in Seattle. So,
which that's crazy. That's crazy to get his hands on it. Very cool. Though.
I have one last one I want to just briefly mention, and I think you have one too, Tony.
Do I?
You do. I don't know why you
keep
picked
going.
it. Mine that I just want to throw out is Harry Nilsson's album, Nilsson Smilson. It's a photograph done by Dean Torrance, who actually I need to look it up because there's a very funny kind of background to it. But the Nielsen Smilson is just literally a photo of him in his kitchen wearing a bathrobe. And it looks like it was taken either very early morning or very late at night. It's black and white. I love the color contrast of the white text and then the yellow text, which was kind of done on the vinyl reissue version a couple of years ago for Record Store Day, where the album is a mix of white and yellow. I think it just fits the vibe of the album. Like it literally, when I see the album cover, it makes me think of the song "Early in the Morning," which is a cover he did on the album. And when I was looking it up, the album, the photograph was done by Dean Torrance, who was part of a duo named Jan and Dean. And supposedly in the early 60s, they were pioneers of the Californian sound and vocal surf music styles later popularized by the Beach Boys.
Oh, interesting. And you know what's crazy? I was just about to say that the Nielsen Smilson cover reminds me of a lot of photos of Brian Wilson in the 70s, where he's got like the beard. There is a lot of ones with him, like with an open, robe open up top and everything. So, yeah, the lore goes deep.
Now you have one last one, Tony, that you put on our list that I'm questioning you, but
it's kind of a bullshit one. But sometimes there's just an album cover, and you're just like either like, why? It's just like, what does this have to do with the album? Was this the best thing you could have done? And I mean that I mean, a lot of people would probably say Pet Sounds is kind of like that. Like, oh, let's go to the zoo and take some unflattering photos of ourselves.
But that makes sense because it's called Pet Sounds.
Yeah, but the name's kind of bullshit anyways.
Okay, but this one is really bullshit.
Well, the more interesting example to share would be Pearl Jam's self-titled record, which people just call Avocado because there's a picture of an avocado on it with this blue background. That's it's a gradient, it has a shades of blue, but it's pretty simple. Avocado on blue, and I don't know if this was like, maybe like a minimalist approach, if you will.
Well, I have some info about it.
You do?
Yeah. So
are you going to spoil it for me?
Well, I don't have like the meaning, but I have some background about it.
Okay, I'll take the background.
So the cover art, the actual avocado was photographed by artist Brad Clausen, who actually has done many Pearl Jam concert posters. And they're all very they're so really unique and cool. And none of them look like it would come from a guy who photographed a fucking avocado for a Pearl Jam album cover. Mike McCready, guitarist, was like, he said he didn't know what it symbolizes. He said that like Ed's process at the end of the day, like he doesn't really know what he's doing, but he thinks they did a really good job on the album. And he's like, well, let's just throw an avocado on the cover. And he claims that they were maybe watching the Super Bowl around the time and then they were eating some guacamole and that was the reason.
But I mean, yeah, so those are some of the album covers that we like and we think are cool.
Yeah,
I would like to know if, there's any we're sleeping on.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, the point of this episode was just to get some of our favorites. It was not to really go into the history of album covers. There's a lot of classic ones we didn't talk about. Again, Tony and I, we tend to kind of stay in what we like and enjoy. So, not a lot of different genres. But like Tony said, let us know what are some of your favorite album covers. What do you think are some bad album covers? Because even though we didn't talk about that today, there's some really bad album covers out there. But we decided we wanted to focus on the positive and on artwork that we think are fantastic, phenomenal. But let us know some of your favorites. And Tony and I will be back next week. Will it be an episode with him and I? Will it just be me? Will it just be Tony? That one probably not. But stay tuned to see what we come up next. But until then, we hope you take care and you will be hearing from us soon. Bye-bye.